So while we won't be using an actual API, not exactly, we will be using Ajax technology to do pretty much what he just mentioned, which is to load a piece of data from the server to the client, right? Without reloading the entire page. Now, where would we need it? Well, I found an excuse, a very good excuse with blog. When you are registering, right? If we look at our register page for a moment, right? When you're registering, as you're typing your, let's actually open, we were on the to blog, I believe. There we go. Right. So as I'm, just hang on a second. So as I'm typing, let's say my username, which needs to be unique, right? That would be a good example, or the email, which also has to be, well, unique, which means does not exist in a database, but let's just do one of them, right? Let's just do one of them. So let's just say we could just do email for starters. Let's just check if the email is is already in a database or not. Actually, hold on, because we're logging in as a user. Yeah, let's do username. Okay. So what should happen is that as let's say I had already Jerry123 of it in my database. I know I do because I know I did add it. Let's just open up PHPMyAdmin. Right, in the blog, I have a few records there. I think a couple. There we go. So I got Jerry123 already exists. So as I'm typing, the idea is this: as I'm typing, every time I type a letter, I would like the website to verify, does this user already exist or not? And if it does, then warn me. Give me like a yellow or red warning saying this username is already taken. Right, that's what I would want to do. So for that purpose, we don't want to reload the whole page. It's rather whenever I type, it will trigger a request from the client to the server to load information whether this username is already taken or not. If it isn't, then we just won't show anything. I mean, like, just it's nothing extra to show. If it is taken, then we want to show a message saying so. One of the two. And we're going to do it in the most simple way possible. We're not going to create a full API. That's way too early for that. That's actually something we're going to look at next week on the APIs. But rather, we're just going to load a piece of HTML, kind of similar to what the guy mentioned in the YouTube video, except in his case, there was full JSON here somewhere. And the response, where was it? There you go. There was a full JSON here, you see, inner node and so on, lots of it. And only one of the elements of JSON was the piece of HTML. So in our case, this chunk, right? But in our case, we just are going to provide the piece of HTML. That is all we're going to do. All right, so you guys are going to do this with me. Create a new, so in the day2 blog, right? Create a new file. Let's call it is username taken.php. Please keep it lowercase and make sure you type it up correctly. Is username taken.php. Okay, that's the name of the file. And then in it, what we're going to do, we will expect that we will be provided with username. So we're going to say username on the URL. Right, so we'll do something like username. Right. I'm going to expect that there's a username parameter essentially on the URL. And then what do we do with that? Well, we need to do a database query. So let's do our usual require once, right, db php to enable database use to connect to the database, right? And then we need to do a query, which will be fairly similar to this one actually from login. Reason being is we're also matching username here, right? And then we're checking, did we actually find a record or we haven't? So I encourage you to do the same thing. Just grab the chunk from login, this piece, right? Except we're not getting the username from post, rather we're getting it from get this time. So on the URL, get means it's going to be a parameter of on the URL. Post means it's transfer behind the scenes from a submission of a form. Right, so we'll do a query select all from users where username matches, right? We have to escape the username, absolutely do. And then if there was a problem with SQL query, then we'll say so, right? And then we'll try and fetch one record. If, let's just clean this up. If we succeed, right? So now if we succeed, meaning what? That the record with that username exists, a record with that username exists, we have to say, so we're going to say something like this, echo, let's see, let's say username already registered. We'll just give it error, yeah, something like this, right? Else, you know, there is no else. There is no else because if the username is not registered, then I don't actually want to display anything. I just want to display a warning or an error when somebody is trying to register a user with username that's already in use, right? That's the only concern I have. So I'll skip the else. Okay, let's just fix up the indentation. There should be a way here somewhere to automatically indent, but I haven't found it yet, or I haven't looked probably. It's probably somewhere. Oh, must be somewhere there. There always is a plugin for everything in VS Code. All right, so that's pretty much it. Now let's test it. There's one more thing here we need to fix, but we'll do it in a moment. So when I go to the web browser now, and I access is username taken, please be careful with the typos there, right? There's a slight glitch here because if I did not provide the username, I'm getting a notice like this. That's not nice. I should handle it myself, right? So I should add the usual if, you know, not is set, right? Meaning if I'm not receiving a username in the URL, then yeah, echo username parameter provided, something like this, and exit, right? By the way, in PHP there is another I guess function you could call it, which is called die, which does echo and exit. So whenever you see echo and exit, you could also do die. This one requires a parameter like this, right? And it's the same thing. This means output this piece of text and then exit the script, meaning stop the script execution, right? Is the same thing. So technically we could actually use the same thing here. Now there is no difference and I don't really care which one you use. I'm just saying in a lot of code the people write, you're gonna find die instead of echo or print and exit, right? So that's why I'm mentioning it. All right, let's see how that works. So if I go back to my web browser, refresh, there we go, I get my error username parameter not provided. Let's provide it. So if I say Jerry, excuse me, username rather is Jerry, right? I get nothing, which is okay because hopefully it worked, meaning the username was Jerry. I did not find it in the database, and because of that, I did not display anything, right? So then I'll do Jerry123. There you go. Error username already registered. Okay, so that's how we test it. Now I know it works, right? I'm ready to move on to actually implementing the rest. All right, so we're gonna need to add jQuery. The way you find it is you Google jQuery cd in Google, right? Go to hosted libraries. On the right hand side, right click on jQuery, right? And then yes, exactly. And then copy the first one of those. I know there's three versions here. The last stable 1.x branch, 2.x, 3.x, right? So one is pretty old. This one's probably a decade old, more or less. Yeah, we want the more or less the latest stable one. So the 3 something is okay. So copy this, right? And then we want to add it. We don't need to add it everywhere. We just want to add it to the one page that will be actually using JavaScript, or actually jQuery, I should say. So in register PHP, add it at the end of head, inside of it, at the end of it, or anywhere within head actually would do fine. All right, just copy paste that one line. Now, I usually get a question sometime now or a little bit later. Well, Gregory, why don't we just download it into our project? Can't we do that? Yeah, sure, we could. Just there is no point really. I mean, I'm assuming, and you probably could assume too, that whoever is going to be using your website will have access to the internet, right? If they do, you might as well use the jQuery version hosted by Google. Another reason is that because thousands of websites use the same URL, it's very likely that this jQuery will already be in your cache, or not your cache, but in the cache of web browser of whoever is visiting your website. So they don't have to download it again from you, right? So that's why it's recommended to use one of those commonly used CDN network hosted jQuery versions, right? Like this one. Okay, so that's why. So now we don't have to download it. There is no need. If you did, if you absolutely want to, yes, you could download jQuery min.js into the same directory where register PHP is, and then just change the URL to this, right? Yes, you could do that. If you absolutely insist on doing that, yes, you could, no problem there. Okay, all right, so now let's plug it in here. So to do that, we need another piece. We need to actually use jQuery. We actually need to use jQuery. And I didn't teach you guys a JavaScript course, so we haven't done this one yet. That's okay, not a big deal. You guys did some Java query, right? Did you guys do some Java, sorry, excuse me, jQuery? You did some, right? Like a day at least of it?
Yes.
You did, okay. So what we want is, actually, let's just go for this one. jQuery, excuse me, load. Now load is, let's go here. Load is a method of jQuery, which is the absolutely simplest way of using Ajax. What it does is, well, this is extremely simple. It takes a parameter, which is a URL. It will load whatever this URL returns, right? So this URL could be a piece of text, could be, well, HTML, it could be a script, which is what we're gonna do, right? And then it puts whatever was received as content of some item in your DOM, in your document object model, in your HTML, essentially, right? It replaces the content of, usually there's just a selector here with an ID most of the time, right? So it says, well, I have some element, some object with ID result. The object stays, it's not modified. I mean, it's the content of it is changed, right? The object itself is not replaced. The content of it, right? The, I guess, body of it is replaced with whatever was loaded from this URL, right? Now there is the actual .ajax, there is another, there is an actual .ajax, there's .get, .post, right? This is one that we will use sometime next week, right? Once we get to APIs, but we'll get to that. For now, we're just gonna do the simplest thing ever in terms of Ajax. We're gonna use jQuery load. Okay, so how do we do that? Well, we actually need to do a couple of things. First of all, we need to attach an event handler to something, right? In this case, our event, because you guys did event handlers when you press a button, something happens. I'm sure you did that, right? You can hover, you can do other things. In our case, it's a little bit different because what we want is we want an event to take place whenever we change the input. So let's say we were typing, and as we're typing, right, the input changes. By input, I mean this input right here with the username, right? And every time it changes, we want to do a query and ask the database, right, using Ajax, so communication from the client to the server saying, hey, this new username is it taken, right? So what we want an event handler on the input, right? All right, so we'll do that. Do this with me. So we're going to put our script in the head. Now we're not going to do a separate file here. Why not? Because this script is specific to this one page, right? Now, maybe you guys have created JS files, maybe you haven't, right? But yes, we sometimes create JS files if there are functionalities in JavaScript that we want to use in multiple pages of a website, then absolutely we would put it in .js. But in this case, this chunk of JavaScript will be specific to that one page, so we don't need to do that. All right, so the first thing hopefully you guys did was a document ready, right? We have to wait until the document is fully loaded before we can attach any handlers. A second solution to it would have been, which we're not going to use, but you could, right? You could also put, maybe that's some people to do that, put the script at the end here before the, just before the closing of the body. In which case you probably don't need the document ready. There's a typo here, ready, not red, ready, right? But I usually just put it in the head, right here, right? And that's what we're going to do. So document ready, not red, but ready. And then in it, we're just going to test it, make sure it actually works. So we're going to say alert, jQuery works. Okay, that's it. So we want to make sure that, well, jQuery actually works for us. So once you go to register PHP page and reload it, not this one, but rather, there we go. See, there is a message box there, jQuery works. Right at the beginning. If you're seeing it, means your jQuery works. If you're not, then you gotta fix it. So now that we know the alert works, which is good, now it's time to attach an event handler, right? And that's why I'll ask you guys to review. There was a video there where they did integrate jQuery, right? So that we can just use it. So what do we need to do? We need to attach an on something handler on the username. Now what's going to be the event? Not a click. We're not interested in clicks here. Not a hover, because we're not necessarily using the mouse, right? One of the easiest events in this case would be key up. It's called key up, this one. Okay, now we'll do better, but this is a good starting point. Key up, which means what? Every time, so as I'm typing, every time I release a key, which means it's going to be typed, I mean, the letter will appear, right? Every time I release a key and letter, it's added or removed if I press backspace or delete, right? To the input, my event will fire, right? So that's what I'm going to do. That's a good first approximation, and it's kind of covers 99% of all those cases that we need to handle. So how do we do that? We need a selector. So you could guys, you could give this an ID. Totally true. We could do that. We could give this an ID, but we don't have to because we have a name, right? So we could say, well, find me an input whose name is username, right? That's a very valid selector. You guys should know this stuff from CSS, right? You can say, well, this is name of the element and I'm looking for that element with, or a bunch of them with this specific value of the attribute. So I'm saying find me element input with attribute name set to username. Now there are no quotes inside here. Don't put quotes inside of quotes, bad idea, right? But this should work fine. And then we'll say key up. By the way, in JavaScript, the event is on key up, right? But in jQuery, the method is actually called key up. Just like in jQuery, you have click, and in JavaScript, you had on click. All right, so just be mindful of that. The on is usually not there. All right, so then we'll say, right, so on key up, we'll call this event handler, which will do what? Now, that's the question. What do we need to do? Well, a couple things. One is we need to extract the value, the current value of this input, which is the username, right? So we'll say var username is, and then, well, we need the same selector. So we'll say input. Actually, I think this would also work if I remember correctly, because the event happens on the same input. So I think this may actually work fine. Val. Okay. Guys, when you're typing this here, val, there is a few of them. There's value of. So just be mindful, this is a val. The other ones are not the ones that we need. As I said, these are not the droids you're looking for. There's two more. All right. Let's just check if this works properly. So I'm just going to do console. Was it right? Print. Yeah, print. There you go. And we'll just say username plus username. Why would I do that? Can't I just do what I need to do? Well, guys, I'm showing you how to debug the things here. See, console is very useful with JavaScript debugging. In fact, that's the first place I go to. If I'm writing JavaScript, I want to make sure everything works okay. I'll go to the console. Okay, I'm going to test it. Yes, I will give you some time to do that as well. But let's just go here, reload, and I would go to inspect, and I would check a couple of things. One is console, and a second one, because if there are problems with JavaScript, they very often show up on the console. You know, syntax errors, other issues, right? Second one, if I'm dealing with Ajax, I'm going to use also the network. For now, I haven't called any Ajax yet, so no need to. So I'm just going to stick with the console. But let's reload, and then click in the username, and I'm typing A. Look at this, B and C, and I already know I messed up something. They say console print is not a function. Okay. That's weird.
You're missing a closing bracket after the function. Key up, open bracket, function, open close. Shouldn't there be a second close?
No, looks good to me.
After key up, you have an open bracket.
I do. No, in the curly?
No.
No, this, well, it's a, so this is a parameter to key up.
So where does it close? All the way at the bottom?
No, well, I just showed you the selected area.
Okay. All right.
Right, just like this one is. So this whole, so I'm calling document ready, and the one parameter to it is an anonymous function, which is this.
All right. Yeah.
Right, inside of which I'm making a call, inside of which there is another anonymous function, which is this.
Okay.
Yeah, in JavaScript, functions, and especially anonymous functions, are first-class citizens, as we say, which means that they can be parameters to function calls. You know? Oh, console log. Thank you. Exactly. Yes, that's why the print didn't line well with me. Yeah, I'm like, yeah, this is one of those curses when you're programming too many languages, they kind of get blurry a little bit. Yeah, it's always been like that, especially when you're switching between them, right? But notice here, there's a plus here to concatenate, right? In PHP, we use a dot. Very important. All right, so let's try this again. So reload, and I press A. There you go. See username A. You see that on the right-hand side? Just gonna make it bigger. B, C, 1, 2, 3. There you go. And as I'm deleting, right, same thing happens. You see, the username gets printed out. Whatever is the current username, it gets printed out, which means it tells me that what? That my event handler key up seems to be working okay, and I'm able to successfully extract the username. By the way, this, okay, let's make sure we get clarity on this one. What is this? This is the object that triggered the event. Which object triggered it? Well, this one, right? The input with name set to username. That's the object that triggered it. So in some cases, using this is useful, and in some cases, it is not. I'm not saying this is always going to be this. I'm just saying in this case, the object that triggered something is the same as the one from which I want to read the value. So using this works fine for me, right? Okay, I hope this is clear. So this is what is the object in the OM that triggered the event that you're handling. Okay, all right, let me see how far you got with this. Okay, so we pull the value from the input, right, which is the username. We don't need to log it anymore. That's good. We know it works, right? So now it's time to make the call, right? So I said, kind of warned you that we will be using this thing called load, right? Load. So we need to give it a URL. Now you see there are some other what I say, optional parameters, data and complete, right? Yes, we could. We don't really care to do that. We will be using more parameters when we go to actually do Ajax next week. But for now, we just need the first one, which is the URL. So what's the URL? Good question. The URL will be, so let's actually write the whole thing. So where are we going to put the result? Actually, that's the first question. Where are we going to put the result? Somewhere, I would say at the end of the username. You see there's a BR there, right? There's the input and there's a BR. You know what we're going to do? We're going to put a span right in there. So do this with me. Where the BR is, put your cursor just before, press enter, put in a new line, and let's just add a span in here, you know, an empty one. And then we need to give the span an ID, definitely. So we're going to call it, let's call it username taken. And because we wanted to show up, you know, just not black on white, but rather with some colors, right? Let's give it the same style as we use for the error messages. So let's give it class error message, right? Which we already had in CSS that we use, right? There is an error message style here. You know, the terribly looking one, right? The one where you're going to do better. Yeah, that's the one. All right. So we're going to do span ID, username taken, class error message, close the span. There's nothing in here initially because, I mean, there's no error to show initially when we first load the page, right? So then, once we got this, let's find it. So we're going to say selector, let's find, so we said what username taken, right? So find the username taken and load into it whatever is returned from the following username URL is username taken .php question mark equals user, excuse me, question mark username equals, and then here I'll put the username. Right? Would that be okay? Yep, that'll be fine. That'll be fine. And that's pretty much all there is to it. Almost, right? Yeah, let's test it. So I reload this, still viewing the console, that's good. And I say, Jerry. All right, so nothing happens here on the console, right? But it's not supposed to, because I'm not writing on anything on the console anymore. I actually commented this out. I didn't have to, but I did, right? What I am interested in whenever I'm debugging Ajax is usually I need to go to network. Look what's been happening. See all those URLs over here is username. I'm gonna reload. Okay, I will do it again. So now I loaded the register PHP jQuery styles. There is no fev icon. You can ignore this. There's no, yeah, we don't care. So then I say J, look what happens. Is username taken, question mark, username equals J. You see out there at the end, right? That was the URL, right? Question username J. All right, so J, E. Oh, let's just clean it. Yeah, E. You see another query. R. You see every time I type something or I remove something, right? There is a query made. Now, this query to the server right? It returns, so this is the parameters, right? Response is empty. You see, it actually says there's no data in the response, which is okay because I didn't send any. I did not send any in my script over here. I'm not sending anything if the username was not found. But watch this, Jerry, 1, 2, 3. Look at this. First of all, there's a couple of things here. First of all, look, there is an error message suddenly showing up here. That's my span. That's the span with the style that I just set up, right? And here is the result of the query. You see, this time there is a response saying error username already registered, right? Now, if I change something and I say J123 4, well, it disappears because what? A new query is made, which finds out that J123 4 does not exist in the database, so nothing is returned and span becomes empty, right? If I delete the 4, see, it goes back to the error message. Okay, all right, so that's how you know it works. So troubleshooting this is, first of all, number one, you made sure that this works properly, right? This script works properly on its own. That's number one step. Do not go anywhere further without it, right? You test it separately. Second, over here, you go to the console first and you make sure that as you reload the page and as you're typing things, there are no errors on the console. If there are syntax errors with your JavaScript, they will show up here. You should pay attention, right? If this is okay, then you go to the network and then you check here. Is everything here looking okay, right? If you're getting 400 or 404 over here, right? Then you get a typo. For example, if I have the wrong URL, right? Look what happens. See, is X username taken? See, I'm getting 404. So if that's the case, then well, you got to fix it. If you're getting 500s here, 500 means that there's an error in PHP somewhere. 500 errors means it's on the server. 400 means just item not found, URL not found. Okay, so that's how you troubleshoot it, and that should pretty much be all the steps, right? So as I said, console. So separately test the Ajax script, console, and the network, right? Do you do those three, you'll be okay. So in here, there is one small problem, is that when we take the input from whatever the user is typing, right, we just smack it into the URL without actually checking what it is or doing any sort of cleanup there. So let's just watch what can happen. So I go here. What if I say username and I say Jerry ampersand another equals something, right? I mean, look at the URL now. See the problem? Potentially. Now, in this case, not that much of an issue. Look at the URL. The URL says username equals Jerry, and then it gives another parameter and another equals 234. Right? So, in other words, from the point of view of the script, the username is Jerry, and another is just another parameter to the script, which we're not using. So again, in this case, nothing terrible will happen really, because we don't allow ampersands in the username anyway. It's not a big deal, right? But still, nah, it's not ideal. I mean, if maybe in the future, I want to allow the user to type a piece of text saying a description, right? A description that may contain ampersands. And I want to, via Ajax, do something with it. So one of the things we do when we put data into the URLs is that we need to escape, we kind of translate some of those pieces of them. And there are two functions in JavaScript. One is called encode URI. This one encodes the entire URL. Or we only encode a URI component. So I'm going to go with this one, which means this is used to encode just the parameter. This is the preferred way of doing that, by the way. So the way we do it is we say, well, listen, the part that comes from the user, which may be a little problematic, is the username. So what we'll do, we'll say that username equals encode URI component of username. There you go. I'm just gonna So what does it do? Well, it will change certain characters to their hexadecimal codes or Unicode codes, I should say. Let's just give you guys an example. That would be the easiest way. So I'll do the same thing here. I'll do Jerry ampersand, right? And look at this. This was, in my case here, it actually, in the URL, I actually had Jerry ampersand another. Now let's try this again after the change I just made. So I'll say Jerry and, excuse me, and another equals something. Now look at the URL now. Jerry percentage 26. We see that on the right bottom of my screen, right? Jerry percentage 26, right? So percentage 26 is what the ASCII code or the Unicode for ampersand, right? Which means that my script will receive parameter username being Jerry ampersand another equals 2134. You see the equality sign also was changed, right? Which means that this whole thing is now a single parameter, right? No matter what kind of weird characters I put into the input. Previously, I could essentially have fooled my script into thinking I'm actually providing separate different parameters to it. Okay, so if you're taking information from the user, you need to use encode URI component before you put them into the URL, like I'm doing here, right? You need the encode URI component. Why is it URI, not URL? Because URI is a superset of URLs, meaning that every URL is a URI, but not every URI is a URL. All right, good. So that was pretty much it. Any questions on this? What we just did? Well, the whole 1 hour of what we've been doing. Okay, so for article add, which of the things I've done is most similar to it? Actually, register, I think it would be most similar to it. So I'm just going to borrow the whole register, you know, and I'll paste it here. I'll just do a little bit of cleanup here. So require once DBPHP, yeah, I do want that. The title will be, of course, add new article or something like that. I don't actually need this jQuery or JavaScript in this, so that goes away. And then my form. Okay, so the form will be post, of course, it always is, pretty much, right? But just thinking, we actually will need a script later on. I'll show you something in JavaScript. But the form will be actually simpler than here, right? So we'll have an input. So let's do title, right? And that would be my title. That'll be one-liner, right, with text, and then value title, of course. PR, that'd be nice. And then the rest will be the body of the article that I'm adding, right? Which is not an input, right? It's a text area. And I'm going to give it name body. I should give it some size, so I could do, well, let's just do, let's say 60 columns and maybe 10 rows. It's a little tight, but it will do for starters, right? And then guys, text areas do not have value. They have content, right? Because some people sometimes try and do this. No, that doesn't work. No, they don't have a value, they have content. Text area, and then next line. I think we're okay here, and the value on the submit button would be post article. I think that should do it. Okay, so I have to adjust the display form. The parameters would be title and body. Right, and I think that should do it. Yeah, I think we're okay. All right, so now we're receiving a submission. If we are, how do we know? Well, did we get a title? Right. So let's check down. Did I get a title? And if I did, then extract title and body. Okay, that should do it. And then verify inputs. So there is quite a few things here. We're going to do the easy stuff first, right? So what's the verification? The easiest verification would be just to do the basic validation I ask you to do, which is the lengths, right? So I'm just going to get rid of all this. We're just going to go with the basic, and you know what? I'm just gonna copy this over. Why not? It's just too simple. There you go. Right. So I'm checking is the title between 2 and 100 characters. And I think the length of the body is wrong because it has to match whatever was in the database. So let's check the structure. So here I had 104,000. There you go. We have to match it. So it was 100 and not 10,000, but 4,000. There we go. So whatever it is, it needs to match what's the maximum amount of
title maximum 10, I think. Minimum 10.
That's what I said.
And the PDF.
Okay.
This is how I remember.
Okay, that's fine. Yeah, I'll keep it 2, but you're right. It's probably 10 there. Yeah. All right. So state to submission with errors. Show the list of error messages, right? And then now here's the thing. Personally, I would not remove the title if it's wrong. So for example, if the title is too short or it contains invalid characters, personally, I would still display it back to the user and let them fix it upon failed submission. I would not clear it up. Why? Because if I'm writing an article and suddenly, you know, the title disappears on me, I'll be pretty angry. It's like, what the hell happened? Right? I don't want to lose the data. It's a little bit different than other forms we had. In this case, I would keep the title, I would keep the body, even if there is a problem with them. You know? For example, if the body is too long, somebody wrote a really long article, they submit it, and now, poof, the article is gone. I mean, they've been working on it for an hour, and now it's gone. I'll be really annoyed, right? By the way, professional content management systems, CMSs, such as WordPress, don't do it this way. What they do, you can save a draft, right? You save a draft, and then you decide once you're ready to actually publish it. But, you know, this is not a full CMS yet. And it won't be because we're not going that way. Okay, so I will not reset body and title to empty in this case. I won't. Why? That's my choice as a user experience expert, which I'm not really, but you know, I try to do my best. I say this is better for the user to keep the title and body even if they are invalid. All right, so I will show the errors like I did before, and I will display the form with title and body. All right, no problem there. And then if, okay, you see there's a whole chunk of things missing here. So now to do an insert into articles, okay, let's look at the database. So I got ID, sure, that's null. But then I need to insert author ID. How do I know the author ID? Guys, if you ask the user, so if what you did, you created a form which has an author ID as one of the inputs, that is absolutely unquestionably wrong. Do not do that. Author ID must come from the session, which means we need to require that the user has a session and is logged in. What does that mean? Well, that means we have to add some logic here. So for example, let's just do here. First of all, before we even begin to verify or show the form or anything, we have to make sure that the user is actually logged in. How do we know that? Well, how do I know that they are logged in or not? Because in the login over right here, right, I set session of blog user to something, right? I set it to be the user record. So I can check, right? And then actually in logout, let's look at logout. In logout, I unset it. I remove it from the session, right? So what I could do, I can just check if it's not set, right? If the session of log user is not set, then I will display a message and I will refuse access pretty much, right? So something like this. If user is not authenticated, then do not display the form, but only access denied message with a link back to index.php. And that's it. Right, let's try this out. There may be some other issues with the script right now, but we'll try it anyway. So let's do article add.php. Okay. Am I logged in? Apparently so. Okay, let's just check session. I am logged in. Okay, there we go. Yeah, I'm logged in. Yeah, right. I logged in the morning. Okay, so let's do log out. So log out, click to continue. Right, I don't have the index implemented yet. And let's do article add. Okay, so almost, right? It says actually you must post article to and then click to continue, but it still displayed the form. So I have to actually change it. There's a problem here. I should add an else here. All of the below or exit. I could do an exit here too. I suppose I could do exit. That's one way. Or I could do an else, whichever I prefer in this case. I'll do an else. Yeah. Did somebody find how to re-indent things nicely in VS Code yet? If you have, let me know.
There's a hotkey. It's Alt Shift F.
Alt Shift F. Oh, wow. Nice. Thank you. I like it. Alt Shift F. I gotta remember that one. All right. So we are right. So now what I'm doing is I'm checking. It went a little bit too deep for my taste, but I suppose that's okay. Yeah. So I'm right. So I'm checking if somebody's logged in. If they're not, I show the error message. Otherwise, I will continue to check. Am I receiving a submission? If I am, then handle it. If not, just display the form. So I'm pretty okay with that. Now, so once I know they are logged in, so over here, right? I know. So if this didn't happen, that means that they are logged in, right? Then I know I'll be able to figure out the user ID. What's going to be the user ID? Well, the user ID, I'm actually going to need it here, will be inside of session, right? I know I got my, can I paste it? No. I have my session of log user of what? Well, let's look at my records. Actually, you know, even better, if I log in, because we have a little debugging tool, the session PHP, right? So if I log in, let's actually try, there you go. Now it doesn't let me see the form. So I'm gonna do, let's do login. I think I had another user. Let's just do another one just for the fun of it. I had Eva or something. Yeah, Eva 123. Yeah. So I got Eva 123, Eva 123. There we go. I'm logged in. Nice. Click to continue, and then we'll go user Eva logged in. And then you see here in the index, I was asking what is the username, which is okay, but I want the ID. So see if I just look at the session, my blog user has an element ID right here. That's the numerical ID of the user who's currently logged in. So I need to extract it. So I'll just say blog user of ID. That's my user ID. And I know it's going to be there. Why? Because I did make sure that they are logged in right here. Right, so they can never reach this line if the user is not logged in. So now that they are, I will say user ID. Now I don't actually technically have to escape it. Why not? Because I know it's going to be numerical value, and I trust it because the only place it could have come from is the login right here, which came from the database. So I'm quite certain that this one is just an integer, is not dangerous. But you know, for consistency reasons, I'll escape it anyway. I'm just like, you know what, I don't want to think about it. Because once you start making exceptions, okay, you know, I don't have to escape it. I don't have to escape it then. You know, what if you make a mistake? If you make a mistake, you might be opening SQL injection opportunity for an attacker. So I'll just escape them all. So user ID escape it. Then we have the, right, not username. Then we have body. Actually, let's look at the database. So articles. So the first one was ID automatically assigned. So that's null. Author ID, which I just pulled up, right? So that's going to be my, so that's my user ID, or I could call it author ID, but it's user ID, right, of the currently authenticated user. Then I have two more, right? I have timestamp. I don't have my timestamp. You see, timestamp will be assigned automatically by the database. So I will actually, it's going to look weird, but it's going to work fine. It should. I'll just say null because it will be again generated by the database. And then finally, I will have my title and body right here. There we go. And that should do it. There is still a bunch of problems with it, but it should work. So confirmation article added, right? Click. Now, I don't want to click to login, or I don't want to go to index. Click here to view it would be nice. How would I view it? Well, you see, if I could generate a URL with the proper ID right here, you see, right here would be the ID, right? Then I would allow the user to view to click on a URL and be taken to view the article. That's the idea, right? Because we will have something like, you know, like this, right? And that should show me article number 2 or with ID number 2. I will have it. I don't have it implemented yet, but I will, right? Fetch it from the database, display it, and so on. So I would like the user to be able to just, you know, click on the link and view the article they just created. That will be kind of user-friendly. So how do we do that? Well, you need to find the ID of the record that was just inserted. How do you find it? Well, you could ask Google. There is something called MySQLi insert ID, right? So you could actually ask PHP get insert ID. There you go, Google knows, right? And they say, there we go, that's it. See, you run your query to do the insert, right? And if it succeeded, then you'll be able to get the last ID using this function, MySQLi insert ID. Okay, and that's exactly what we're going to do. So if there was a problem, of course, then we can do that. Actually, there should be an else here, or this needs to be die. This could also be. I'd rather do die here actually. Yeah, this is ugliness, and this is going to go away after the quiz. So on Wednesday. Yeah, I don't like those dies at all. Because what happens if you die is that you don't output the rest of the HTML. So you see, for example, here is a closing div, closing body, closing HTML. Those will never happen if I die here. Those will never be sent to the web browser, which means if you die in the middle of generating web page, the HTML will be broken. And it may display okay-ish, or it may not. Because then the web browser will just, you know, do its best, what it can to understand what it is that you meant in this broken page. That's why we don't like to use die. But again, we can't avoid it for now, really. Yeah, Wednesday. We'll get to that Wednesday. All right, so we've got, so in here, we want to fetch I said the ID, right? So it's not connection, it's link. So we had the, what was it, article ID is MySQLi insert ID, right? So I'm asking, hey, tell me what was the ID of the last inserted record. I'm going to get it right here. And that's pretty much it. Right, okay, let's try this. So how about I actually go and add an article? So article add PHP. First article title. There's something for you guys to memorize, right? You guys are gonna have to remember this by heart. Right. So this is just a dummy text that we use to create articles. With post an article. All right. So article added. It seems like it didn't fail. That's a good sign. And I got a link here. Click here to view. Now, if you can see the bottom of my page, actually, I'll click on it. See the URL ID = 1. Right. So it takes me to view the article I just added. Okay. Let's see if that worked. I'm sure it did. There you go. Here's my first article, right? Here's the title, here's the body, and the timestamp is current moment. Okay, not terrible. Not terrible at all. Okay, before we move from this one, let's see, because I might forget about it later. Let's do a few improvements here. Quite a few, actually. One of them is this. This is it's a blog. So usually I don't just want to write plain text. I may actually want to write, bold, italics, that sort of things, right? Would you agree? Right? If you're writing an article, you want some extra font sizes, maybe? Well, maybe. So one of the things we could use is that there are JavaScript editors. They're called rich text. Rich as in they allow you to create kind of like in Microsoft Word, right? You have a menu there, right? So there's quite a few of those, and I encourage you to consider, depending on your project, to use one of them in your projects. I'm going to go with TinyMC just because I already have the code, but it's not because it's the best. Just because it's just literally just because I used it before. Okay, so what they do is I'm going to go with this one, TinyMC. As I said, I have absolutely no specific reason to use it other than I did, right? The way you do that is somebody's unmuted. Yeah, is you add this chunk of text into the top of your page. So I'm just going to do that. Yeah, I'm just going to do that. And for my article add in the head, I'll add. So what does it do? It's kind of like with JavaScript, right? We say load this JavaScript, and then this one will make a call to initialize TinyMC on any item that is a text area, which is okay because I only have one text area, right? I could be more specific if I want. I could say, name is body. Probably a good idea, actually, to be a little bit more specific, right? Because otherwise, if you end up having multiple text areas, all of them would use the TinyMC editor, which may not be what we want. Okay, let's go here. So I'll go back to article add, yeah. All right, and there you have it. Now, it shows up an error here because it says this domain is not registered. That's okay. We're going to have to ignore it until you guys have a hosting, which we'll see when we get there, hopefully later this week, right? As soon as you have hosting, maybe Friday, you will be able to get rid of this message, right? For now, you can't. So I'm just going to click on it, but it's a nice thing. Look, it says heading. Right, and I can actually say here is a heading. It's expanded, right? And I can. Where's my lorem ipsum? All right, there we go. Let's go for my lorem ipsum. Now, this editor right now is not configured really well because it's going to allow me to do things that I don't necessarily want to do. Right, but I could, make something bold, make something italic. Right, you guys see where I'm going with this, right? Okay, different styles. All right, so now when I post an article, right, when I post an article using it, the title, I forgot the title. All right, second article using rich text. Okay, post an article. Okay, click here to view it. One of the issues with the viewing is that there may be too many tags actually. Just hold on a second. Being allowed in the text of the article that was just created. I just realized, guys, before I can explain what the next issue is, I actually have to be able to see the article. So I'm just gonna go sideways a little bit here. We're gonna implement the article view, okay, which is this script. Okay, so I'm just gonna go to article, which was, I didn't have this one open yet, yeah. And let's talk about this one. So what is that similar to? Nothing really. So I'm just gonna start with PHP and with PHP. Let's just do the basic, yeah, open close, yeah. And then we have the styles, right? Article. This could be the title actually, but I'm just gonna say article for now. Article view, something like this. And the rest, yeah, the rest is okay. So now this script requires an ID as a parameter, right? Like we see it here. It has to be given ID because the only purpose of it is to view a specific article. So if the ID is missing, we should get an error message. So let's do that. So let's just check. If not, is set of get of ID. Right, so if the ID is missing, we'll do die actually, because this should never happen. You see, die is generally reserved for things that should never happen, like actual errors. Right, so error missing article ID in the URL, something like this. Yeah, that should do it. Right. So then if I refresh, okay, so the ID is showing. There you go. See. Right, no ID, no game. Right, second thing, I need to fetch the article from the database. Now, when I do that, there's a couple things here. Number one, I may or may not find the article. So I need to be ready that the article might be there, or somebody may put an ID in the URL that there is no matching article for it, right? Could that happen? Absolutely, right? So let's write the query. So we'll say something like this. Let's do SQL. I'm just thinking, hold on a second, just I need to extract the ID. Yeah, let's do this one first. So ID equals what? Get of ID, right? So it's extracted. Let's write the query. Now the query, first approximation is not fully correct, but first approximation will be get me everything from articles, right? Where what? Where article ID is. Yeah, I'll need that. I don't think we need the double quotes there. Do we? Actually, it will work either way in MySQL. Yeah, and this is sprintf, right? Which is a formatted print to a string, right? Then we'll give it one parameter, which is the ID, and we should be okay. Well, almost. You guys remember escaping? See, you got to be extremely careful here with this. You see what I just did? I just created a big security hole in my system. This is actually one of those things we discussed with when we were almost every time when we're redesigning IPD, we have this discussion among teachers and management and so on about, hey, shouldn't we have a security course? Like, because security is an important part of software. And I say, no, because we can't teach security as a concept. We need to teach it in specific places with every single technology that we use. So when you're learning about JavaScript, there are some security aspects there. Let's say if you're using Node.js especially, right? Which you probably didn't, but that's okay, right? If you're doing PHP, security issues, .NET, other security issues, right? Java, different security issues, right? Different platforms, different languages have different security issues. Libraries, right? The issues you're gonna have will depend on the libraries you're using. You're gonna see on Wednesday, and I keep saying that, I know, I'm teasing you. Wednesday is gonna be brave new world. I promise you that. It's gonna be like, wow, why didn't we do that in the first place? Well, we couldn't, but you'll see. So it depends on the choice of libraries. On Wednesday, you're gonna see that a lot of those things that we're actually doing a lot of extra work to prevent those problems, they will never happen in the first place when we use the right libraries. Crazy, but true, right? So that's why we cannot really have effectively a separate course for security in software. It's just not possible because the security is sprinkled all throughout different specific technologies and their problems. In IT field, it's a little different story. Yes, you can teach certain principles of safety, you can talk about firewalls and other things like that, absolutely, but not with software. You can't do that, not effectively. It would be a waste of time. Like we used to have an XML course a long time ago. Believe it or not, we used to spend 2 weeks on XML. I don't know what those students were. I never taught this course, but I don't know what can you talk about XML for 2 weeks. I mean, that actually makes any sense whatsoever. Anyway, go back here. So what do I need to do here? I need to escape the ID, right? So I need to do what I did before. I need to do my MySQLi, right? Real, no, that was the, yeah, real escape string. There I go, off ID, right? But I have to remember to do that. Why? Because I don't trust the ID. Look, where did the ID come from? It makes a whole difference. Where did it come from? If the user provided it right now via web browser, I don't trust it. You see, you can never trust the client, and don't take it personally, and they shouldn't either. I mean, don't take that, don't tell that to the customer. But in the technical sense, you can never trust the client, not on the web. You always need to expect that some of them may be malicious. You must verify everything you're receiving every single time. You don't. That's where you hear those stories where they stole credit card information, other private information. Well, that's how this happens. SQL injections, other issues where safety checks were not in place. Okay, so let's just do that. MySQL, right? And actually needs two parameters. So we've had, I think it was link, right? Yeah, link and ID. Okay, so that's my SQL query, and this SQL query is actually deficient. Some of you actually know, right? This query is deficient. Why? Because we need a join, but we'll get to that in a moment. Yeah. All right, let's do this one first. So let's check the result. I'm just going to copy this chunk because it's always the same, right? Run the query. If there was a problem, die will probably be better. Die, show the error, which is a terrible thing. We again, after Wednesday, we will never do that again. This is terrible, right? And if everything went fine, then let's fetch the article, right? So we fetch the article into an associative array. What does it mean? Key value pairs. The keys are the names of columns, and the values are, well, the values that you fetched. How many articles do you expect? If you say 1, you're kind of right, but it could be 0 or 1. It's possible the article will not be found. So we actually have to say if article, then do something. I hear you, Sol, no problem. Otherwise, we'll do something like this. Echo article not found. All right, something like this, right? If the article was found, then I will what? I will display it, right? Now, I would like to at least give a designer a chance to use some nice CSS. So I will not just display the article, I'll put it in a box. You guys already know from your HTML and CSS course that all HTML and CSS is boxes within boxes within boxes, right? Well, that's that's kind of the nature of things. So I'll do a div box called article box, inside of which I'll put the article information, just in case I want to give it some styling, which would be nice, maybe some backgrounds and so on. Did you guys do Bootstrap? Can you just tell me? You guys said yes, I think, right? You did, okay.
Yeah, but it wasn't proper. It's not.
Excuse me?
it wasn't proper. It's not the teacher who teach us, so we made ourselves.
You did that on your own. Okay, got it. I see. Okay, great. So you guys will have opportunity to do more in Bootstrap in this course, because Bootstrap will be, I would say, nearly required for your projects. Not for the quizzes, that's a different story, but for your project. I mean, you can choose a different technology, but it needs to look decent. So if you want to do not Bootstrap, but something else, I'll be okay with it, but it has to look decent. Okay. All right, good. So let's go with this. So we're going to add some div here with a class, which would allow us to later on add a style if we wanted to. And then we need to show the title, right? And there's a couple issues here. Let's try this. So if I said, so title could be, let's just do H2. Did I actually fetch it yet? Yeah, article, excuse me, article. Let's just do, yeah, okay, fine. Yeah, let's do it this way. So we'll do article of title. This is problematic again, but I have to tell you the story, not just give you a solution. This is a problematic line, the one I just wrote, right? Then we had the date time, which is another problematic line. So I'll say echo. Let's just see. Let's just put an I. Posted on, and then let's do article, and I had, what do I have, TS something, right? I had created TS. It's case sensitive, be careful. I know SQL is not case sensitive, but PHP is, so we have to be careful there. So we'll do created TS. Yeah. This one's okay-ish. There's another problem with this line you'll see in a moment. And yeah, let's just say, yeah, we'll just close this for now. You could do a paragraph here, or a span would be fine too, whichever, or even div would be fine too. Yeah, and that should be sufficient. And then finally, it's time to display the body, right? So we'll do this one. I'm going to do a separate div here. So we'll do div class article body, because again, I might want to style it in some way, right? And then I'll say article of body, and I'll display it. Yeah, that should pretty much do it. Will look better if I add the new lines. It will look better in the source view. I think I'm okay here. So I got the body, and that would be a good starting point, right? It's not ideal. There's several issues here. There's some things that are missing, but it's a good start. Let's see what happens. So I have article 1. I don't have article 2. Let's see that. Okay, there's first article title posted on. Okay, so it seems to be working. Couple issues though. First of all, let me show you a couple of problems. Article add. Let's add another one. What if I say, something like this? What's the title of the article right now? It's blah, less than, be, greater than, and so on, right? Generally, in titles, there should be no, no tags, right? Title is a title. Yeah, we would wish so. Okay, well, let's pause the article. Oh, hold on, because my title is already bold, is it not? Okay, because I made it H. Yeah, okay, I made it H2. Okay, so let's go back. Yeah, okay, let's do it again. Let's do something else, like italic. Okay, because H2 is already bold. It won't show. Okay, let's try this again. Post an article. Okay, see the problem? That should not be happening. unless that's intentional, which is a complete different story, and I need to handle it specifically. See, I shouldn't be allowing tags in the title. Generally, in a blog, title is a title, it's text, right? What will be the style of this text? Well, it will be defined by the styles of the blog itself, of the whole website, right? It's not up to the writer of a blog to put tags in a title. So what do? Well, you have two choices. One is you could strip the tags, which we'll do in a moment, but not for the title. Or you could escape them, meaning what? Because you see, the problem is right now is, this is what I'm getting. You see, I got the H2, that's fine, but you see, this is what came from database. Blah, I open, I close. So the intention would have been that the I and I close would be actually shown to the user, but not as italic. This needs to be treated as pretty much plain text, right? And to do that in PHP, we need to escape that information. We need to actually use, there's a few ways to do it, but the easiest one is to use HTML entities function. So it will take the title, I'm just going to refresh here, and it will escape those into non-special characters, into HTML entities. Look at this. So I got blah, less than, I, greater than. See, italic, less than, I, close, greater than. Let's look at the article view. Look at this. Now, that would be okay. There is a danger when you're allowing tags. There's another danger, is that tag might be open, right, and never closed. I should have shown you that. You see, what if I didn't have this line? There's a problem here. What if I don't have the HTML entities escape? Let's just remove it back. Okay, and then let's go back here. All right, and let's say in the database I open italic. I was right here. There you go. I open it and I never close it. All right, let's refresh. See, now my whole page is italic starting here. See, it's dangerous to allow HTML tags without balancing them, right? So there was an open tag, it was never closed. So escaping is usually the right thing to do. Okay, if I escape it, no problem, because it will just show open I, and that's it, right? Because in here, I'm just going to get the HTML entities, LTGT. Okay, that's just one issue. There's a few more. Right. Second, we are using an editor for the article body. So you could say, hold on, Gregory, but wouldn't we have the same issue with the article body? Yeah, we would. See, because my article body, for example, here, was it, let's just check the page source. No, maybe it was the second one, I forget. Oh, there you go, look at this. It's not problematic. I got strong, I got style, right? I got, again, another span, and the question is, do I want to allow it? Because right now I'm allowing anything. You see, here's the problem. Somebody could actually fake a submission of an article and inject some JavaScript into it. For example, if they could, some malicious JavaScript, right? This is very dangerous to do. So what could I do? Well, the best thing to do, and I'm going to show you, it's not 100% solution, but it's close. Best thing to do is that when we are submitting an article, so we have to go actually back to article add, we need to sanitize, that's the word, sanitize, like you're wiping, well, since a year, since last March, you keep on wiping different surfaces, right? Sanitizing it. Same thing here. We need to sanitize the inputs received from the submission, and especially the title is okay because we will escape the title, but the body, let's say we do want to allow HTML tags in the body. but only some of them. So for example, you might want to say, well, things like list items, unordered list item, emphasis, italics, strong, bold, right? They're all okay. Even some of the headings, let's say heading 3, 4, 5, maybe they're okay. Spans, fine, right? Script, not so much, right? So one of the ways to do that is to try, and again, this is not 100% solution, it's just good for the discussion that we're having, right? One of the things we might want to do is we might want to sanitize the body. So somewhere around, I would put it here. Now guys, sanitizing the body doesn't mean rejecting it or accepting. It's two different things. See, we have a verification of the input right here. That's one thing, right? Sanitizing simply removes what shouldn't be there. Now you could combine the two. Sometimes you could write a script that says, if there were certain tags present, somebody's trying to do something malicious, let's just reject it. You could do that too, that's okay. Maybe. But as I said, I'm going to show you kind of a 90% solution. We're going to strip certain tags, meaning what? So strip tags is a function that you give it some text, HTML, and you're saying in this HTML, I want you to keep only those tags. So only allow P, UL, LI, EM, strong, I, B, OL, H3, 4, 5, and span. All the other tags, remove them. Now, why is that not a 100% solution? Well, because those tags could still contain attributes like, on click and whatnot, which I may not like, JavaScript-ish stuff. So the actual sanitization, if you want to really sanitize things, you probably want to look for some library online that will do it better. But this one is a good start. Okay, let's try this out. So if I save this, right, let's see what happens. So if I save this and let's go to article add, right? And I add another article. So I'll say, well, sanitize. Yes. Okay, sanitize this, and I'll do a few things. Big heading. All right, so let's say I do here heading 1. Heading 1 is not allowed. I don't have H1 here. I got H3, 4, and 5 only, right? So big heading is not allowed. By the way, those editors, you can usually configure them, which options are supposed to be available and which parts are not. I'm just saying, you can actually tell them which options to show. For example, here, there's a lot of them that we actually don't want to use. But anyway, so then I have some text. Oh yeah, let's just grab the lorem ipsum. Why not? So I got some lorem ipsum, right? And there is, there's some strong here. You see, I can actually see P strong, span, that's okay. I can add italics here, right? I could, let's do a list. Or let's do a list. Let's see how that works out. I thought I had a list here somewhere. Nope. Or maybe I turned this off. Mine. I think I turned it off. Yeah, in oh no, hold on. Fonts box. Yeah, I did not enable it regrettably. Okay, so I can't do using this editor right now as it's configured. I cannot do list items regrettably. Okay, that's too bad. But I potentially could. I potentially could. Yeah, that's unfortunate. All right, but let's do this. So now, see, the bold stayed, the italic stayed. Look what happened to the heading. The tag was stripped, right? In the database, if I look at my new article right here, this is gonna be tight because there's a lot of stuff in there. It's hard to see. Okay, looks like, okay, there we go. Maybe it will show now. But what I'm saying is that the heading, the H1, where is it? On BSP strong. Oh yeah, the big heading. Look at this. There we go. It's right there. See the big heading? The age one, it was removed. It didn't end up in the database. Okay? So you need to sanitize your inputs. And then when you're displaying them, you have to know, is this input sanitized and I should allow tags? Like here, look at the difference. Here, I'm not allowing tags in the title, so I use the HTML entities. But for the article body, I am allowing HTML tags in them, if there are any. But when the article was being added, I did some sanitization. Again, this is not perfect. Okay, but it's a good start. Okay, all right. So we still have 1, 2. Let's see. We still have a couple of issues here. Yeah. So when the submission has failed, which is going to happen here, we need to redisplay the title and the body. But look where they end up. The body, that's okay. There is nothing to worry about because the body is just the body, right? So we just put whatever tags were there. The title though, because it's inside of a parameter as a value. Actually, let me show you how this could break. Hold on, let me see if I can actually make it break. Article on the PHP. So let's do title with quotes. Jerry's candy, whatever, right? Post an article. Okay, see what happened? Where's the double quote and S candy? You see it disappeared. Why? Because if I look at, yeah, I know. Unfortunately, I can't really show it, but the point is that the title, okay, there you go. Actually, this show. Look at this. See, this messes up the HTML because there is a double quote around the value, but the value itself has a double quote as well. That's a problem. So what do we do? Well, one way to do it, I think is the easiest way, is to use the HTML entities in case the double quotes or some other strange characters are part of the title. Oops, sorry, wrong place. There you go. Yeah, this isn't problematic. See, this is why I don't like pure PHP. Again, Wednesday, this stuff will go away for the most part. So many things to think about, but let's just try this. So if I go back to my example here, reload, yes. See, Jerry's candy. Now it's okay. Why? Well, let's look at the source. Oh, because there's a quotation here, right? There's an HTML entity quotation here as a value, which will be displayed as it should, as double quote. Okay, guys, I did not expect you to handle all of these things in your homework. Obviously, we're taking it further, but that's why we're having this discussion today. Okay. Okay, good. Wow, it's 11. So let's look at the view of the article. So let's go to article. Let's just do this one. All right. How do you like this date? Is this date okay? You could say yes, it could be, right? But you could say, well, it's not my favorite format, right? I mean, kind of depends how you would like to see it, right? Maybe you need a different formatting. So it depends. This is how the date comes from the database. This is the super engineering format where ordering by alphabetically, if this is the date, ordering alphabetically and ordering by date is the same thing, right? Because we're going from the most significant ones, year, month, day, hours, minutes, seconds, right? So this is, if engineers were running the world, we would all be looking at dates like this. There's like, that's the only option. Like, there's no other option. This is the way you always write a date everywhere, right? That's the engineering way of writing it, just because. Okay, but We're not living in a world run by engineers, which is okay. We run our part of it, which is good. Okay, but if you want a different formatting, you could do that. Let me just show you how that would could appear. Okay, so here we have with article view, I had the article created TS, yeah, the posted by. So what I could do is I could actually just want to show you a possibility, right? I could format it in any other way. So there is a function date, right? So this would be what? That would be the American way. Month, day, year, at, hours. Well, kind of. I should still do the AM, PM actually. So this is kind of American, kind of not way, right? The day is American, the hours are European. I'm just saying that this is something that you would do in a real system. I missed something here. Not well formatted. Posted date, not data, date. So still 27.
What's HIS?
Hours, minutes, seconds.
I is minutes?
I believe so. Should be. I can double check, but yeah, remember this is not Java. Every language has their own rules.
Okay.
Yeah, this should have worked. Oh, I know. I missed a step. Right, we have to do. There we go. That's what happens. So I need to convert a string to Unix time. You guys remember Unix time? Unix time is a number of, well, milliseconds since January 1st, 1970. And then from that, I can format the date. Okay, because the date from the database comes as a string, right? I need to parse it into Unix time, and then I can format the Unix time into whatever it is that I want. There we go. That was the missing link. Let's try this. There you go. Posted on. Look at this. February 8, 2021, 10:49, 16 seconds. Now, so as I said, this is what? That's the American format. That's European minutes. Just saying, this puts you in control over what the format is. Because the original format coming from the database, outside of engineers, it's not used anywhere that I know of, or in any country. With the year, month, yeah, I don't know of any country that uses exactly that. Maybe there are some, but usually they have their own variations, right? Using like columns instead of dashes or whatnot. Okay, so that's that. Next one, and that's a big one, guys. We're missing information here. Who's the author of this article? Right? If you look at the mock-up I gave you, there was information there. So actually look at this, right? That when I'm displaying an article right here, look at this. There's a display of the article. It says posted by Julia or whoever that was. And this is not the ID of the user. This is what? The username, right, of whoever created that article. Correct? Correct. Right? So I just want to know, let's do a poll. So when you want to try out some queries, you see you can click on the database, then there's a query up here, right? And you can just write a query right there. No, for example, right here, right? So you can say, select articles, right? Or from articles and so on, right? So anyway, you can use the editor, and that's pretty much it, right? Oh yeah, and then so let's just try one. Yeah, select all from let's do articles. Start with this, submit the query. Yeah, I do. And Okay, that's bizarre. It disappeared on, guys, wrong tab. Yeah, not query SQL. There we go. So here we're gonna go select all from articles. Right. And I highly recommend to do this, retain query box. And because then when you go, right, you still get the query, you can continue modifying it, and below here you see the result. Right, so you could do select from articles and users, right? Now I'm gonna get Cartesian product here, so that's gonna be terrible. Right, I got quite a few rows because now I'm matching all the users with all the articles. That's not usually what I want to do. Right, so not quite. But anyway, so that's how you do it, right? You go here to SQL and then you write your query. I don't want to write the query for you. I'm going to stop here. That's not what I want to do, but that's where you test it. All right, so let's take a look at how would this query look like if we were to do a join, right? So as I said, what you could do is you could, grab this, put it into the query. Let's just try this just for the fun of it. Let's say ID2, right? Retain query box, go. Let's see that. Okay, so here's the article, right? I got my article information is there. Now, what I want to do is I want to do a join, right? So I need to do a select from articles and users, right? Where, yeah, ID is 2, yes. And let's do so you can do the join using the keyword join, or you can use the where clause. They both do exactly the same thing. So I'm kind of just used to doing the where clause. So I'll say where. That only works for inner join. The outer join has to be done using the outer join keyword. And we said articles author ID is, of course, users ID. I think I have a typo there. Users. Yeah, there we go. All right, let's try this out. Something's wrong. ID, right, okay, great. So now we got a couple of issues here where what? Article ID is 2, right? There we go. So now, there you go. So here's a warning. It says that some columns are duplicates. We got a couple issues here. For example, I got ID and ID, so you got 2 of them. Right, that's one unfortunate disadvantage of this naming notation in the database, which I asked you to do. That's the primary reason why some people prefer to give the ID instead of naming get ID, name it with the column name. So for example, this would be user ID, this would be article ID, right? That's the primary reason why this is sometimes a better idea. But because we have what we have, the solution here is to actually mention what it is that we want. And while we add it, by the way, we could also just shorten the articles and users in our query. We just say articles as A and users as U, give them an alias, right? It just makes it easier to write the query. So it's AID, and then AID is UID, right? And then in here, what do we want? So I want article ID, definitely I need that. I need author ID, possibly, maybe. Do I really need it? Yeah, there's no harm fetching it. I don't really need it, but I'll get it anyway. I'll definitely need the creation timestamp, right? Because I need to show it. I need from the article, I need the title, and I need the body, obviously, right? And then from the users, I need the username. Do I need the ID? Well, I already have it right here in case I needed the author ID, which I don't, not in this case, but I'll fetch it. Okay. So now, word of warning, when you are fetching this from the database, it will not come as AID, it will come as ID, author ID, created TS title, body, username. Okay, so if you need to, you may need to rename those things as well. So for example, you could do, well, in this case, there's no issue. Let's see, but let's just, for the sake of argument, actually, let's run this first. There we go. See, now I got my ID, author ID, created TS title, body, username, right? So I got those. But let's just say, for the sake of argument, I wanted to say user email, right? And I'll say E. There you go. There you go. You see there's E there, right? So I renamed a column while I was fetching it. There is no as here. I know it's confusing, but there's no as. It works with it too, but it's not required. Okay. Okay. Now I don't really want an email. I'm just saying it's a possibility when you're fetching, right? To rename one of, well, to rename some of the columns if you want to. All right, good. So I got my query. I think I do have it. Let's check. ID, author ID, created, title, body, username. Yeah, that's where I want it, the username. So let's grab this, put it back here. So the difference will be from here. Let's just split that. Oh, that's weird. What just happened? VS Code just went wild on me. All right, so we've got, yeah. ID equals %s, there we go, that's the one. Or %d, you can do that too, it makes no difference in, everything is a string in PHP, if you want it to be. And I think that should do it, right? Let's just see, select from, it's a little unfortunate. Oh, hold on. I think the new version of PHP may allow me to do multi-line strings. Let me just check. I think it may actually work okay. Yeah, because some older version of PHP, they didn't like it. You had to close the string at the end of the line, but in this case, I think it's going to be okay. Yeah, it seems like it should be. We'll test it. Okay, so let's go to article and view it. How about that? Article view number 4, refresh. Okay, SQL query failed. So it doesn't like author ID as UID. Okay, so something's not right here. Oh yeah, comma. It's not supposed to be there. There we go. Seems like it worked. Let's just do this one. Yeah, seems okay. And then also, well, I should kind of use it, right? Once I fetched it, I should actually say, you know, who created that who created that, so posted by someone, right? Now the usernames don't contain any special characters, so technically I don't have to escape the HTML entities, right? Because I know in my system usernames are made up of characters and numbers, that's all there is, so not an issue. But if I were to allow it less than, greater than, which would be weird, but if I did, then I would have to escape it as well. Okay, so let's do that. So we would say article, and we fetched, what was it, username? Yeah, we're just going to say username. Okay, so the difference will be, now look, posted on, look here, refresh, and posted by Eva123. There you go. Right. All right, good. Any questions on this? I'll take them. I'll change one more thing here. Guys, look at the title. It says article view there, right? Well, it's not a very nice title. And unfortunately, the way pure PHP works, which is where we are, is that we already sent title over here. And only later we actually execute PHP code to figure out what the title is. You see, we got title. Where is it? Right. Here's the name. Where was it? There you go, right here, article title. Right. We only get it here. That's kind of unfortunate. So it's kind of too late to change the title. So I will show you a trick, which I don't terribly like to use, but because we're, you know, doing weird things anyway, not using libraries, we can do it. So I'm going to put a script right there in the middle, smack in the middle of my document. I'll say document title is set to the title. I just have to escape it in case there was some special characters there. There you go. Right, so I'll just set the document title, which will what? It will override whatever I set over here, right? Once the page loads, it will actually override it. This script, of course, is executed where? On the client side, right? Because remember, we can generate JavaScript in PHP, but it's actually executed when it reaches the client. So it's kind of a strange thing. You actually are using PHP to generate JavaScript dynamically, right? It will change. You see, look at this. It says Second article using rich text, you see there, right? And if I look at the page source, the actual original title was article view, but look here, right? I generated this chunk, and this piece came from a variable. So I'm using one language to generate another. Totally cool thing, and we do that all the time. We're going to do templates in the next part of the course, which are using this trig all the time, twig. Okay, so not a big fan of this, but it makes things nicer for today and tomorrow. Let's see if I have anything else to add. I think that's it. You guys, everybody do this with me. This will be part required for your homework. Let's just set up the comments correctly. Okay, I just want to make sure everybody's got this one right. So go to phpMyAdmin. Let's just do it now. So here we have the comments. We're going to add the S at the end, of course, right? So let's create a new new table. Comments. And we'll have ID, article ID and author ID. So article ID and author ID. I is uppercase, right? We're still using Java notation. You have to add one more column there. So there's a go on top there, because you're going to need created. Let's do the same thing. Created TS. Created TS, and we'll do body. I would love to call it text, but the keyword text is reserved in SQL, so it may give us some trouble because there's a type text already. That's why I called this. This is the body of the comment. This is what actually was commented. All right, so we got int. That's good. Created TS is again timestamp. Same thing like we did last time. Timestamp. Default is current timestamp, and body is varchar 5000. That sounds crazy. Let's do 1000, because we would have comment that is longer than the article. Wow. Okay. Yeah, that's a little inconsistent. Let's just do 1000. Okay. ID. Okay. So now ID is artificial intelligence, as always, right? AI auto increment primary key, and that's all. Okay, so please do that, and then when you're ready, let me just double check here. I think we're good here. Yeah, varchar 1000. When you're ready, press save. All right, so after pressing save, I got my new table, right? Let's create the relation. So click on relation view. And we're actually going to need two constraints. So we'll do, I'm just going to, actually, that's fine. Yeah, that's okay. So from column article ID, we're in the blog, of course, to articles ID. Right, that's the article, because when you're commenting, there is two foreign keys involved. One is which article you're commenting on. So there's the ID of the article, and then who is commenting, who's the user, who's making the comment. So that's the link to the user. So we're going to need two foreign keys here, right? So click on add constraint. Don't press save yet. It's too early. So click on add constraint, add another one. And I'm going to link author ID. This is not the author of the article, but the author of the comment. And of course, we're going to link it to blog users ID. There you go. Restrict is fine. This is the safe choice always. And then press save when ready. So once you save it, it should say that the query has been executed successfully. Let's just look at, so click on the database, and then let's just verify that if you go to the designer, you should see that the three tables are now connected, right? Articles are connected to, so users write articles, and articles are commented on by users, right? So you should get something like this. So because we got so far, we're adding an article, viewing a list of articles, that's all good, right? No problem there. A couple comments here though. In here, when I'm viewing an article, so I got, there you go, right here. Let's take a look at this a little closer. So this is the view of an article. We're still missing a couple of things here, by the way, which I want you guys to implement. Did you notice every single page on top of it has an information who you're logged in as and the link to log out, right? Either this, or if you're not logged in, you should have a link to login. Right? If you are not logged in, actually, no, hold on. That will be only on the index side. Oh, yeah. Oh, sorry, the index page, because you cannot create an article if you're not logged in, so you won't be able to access that. And here, you should have information you are logged in as whoever, log out. Or if somebody's not logged in, you see in here or up there, whichever you prefer, you should have an information saying something like this: log in or register to be able to post comments. You see this area, that my comment, this part, will not be displayed if user is viewing the article but is not logged in. Right? It makes sense, because to be able to comment, we need to know who's commenting. We need to have the author ID, right? So if a user is not authenticated, they will not be able to post a comment, meaning this chunk, right? This form will not be shown. Okay. And instead of it, I believe you should display text, log in or register to be able to comment, or to comment on articles. Okay, so how do you do that? Well, you can check the session, right? If the user is logged in, then you're going to display you are logged in as whoever log out, right? And then if user is not logged in, then instead of the comment form, you're going to display a message saying log in or register to be able to comment, to comment. Okay, any questions on this? Okay, so I'll add a couple more things, guys. This is going to be a slightly bizarre situation where you will have information. The ID will always be coming from the URL, and it will always going to be get. But submission of this form is a post. So you're going to have a strange situation, kind of strange, where you still, even though it was a post submission, you're still going to get the ID from the get in the URL. See, the get content of get is always whatever the URL indicates. So if the URL has an ID, even if the submission was via post, which it needs to be, right? We said all the forms really will be post, pretty much, with some rare exceptions, right? This is not a search form, so it's a post. You're going to be fetching the comment, you're going to be fetching via post, but the ID of the article, which will be in the URL, is still going to be getting that from get. Okay, I know some people find that confusing. I did too. The index is the one showing all the articles, right? If you look at the mockup, maybe it's not sure if it's
Yeah, but now we have just
we have
showing one article, right?
Who said that?
No,
Never
I'm
said that.
confused.
No,
I'm right confused with the index. Can we go back to the index?
I didn't do index yet. So in index, you're
Okay.
you're showing all the articles. So what I said, I didn't say to use this query. That's not what I meant. This query is only for one specific articles. But if you drop the last chunk, which was, well, not the last chunk, but this chunk, right? If you drop this, then this will fetch all the articles.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, just I thought that this is the index. I was confused because I was not saying this page.
No,
Okay.
it's article, right? Look
Yeah,
at,
clear.
look
Clear.
up there.
Thank
It's
you.
article.
Thank you.
Okay, good. Sure, go ahead.
So when we create, for example, when we create a session, when it's login, yeah, and we assign, if we will use it in the other one, it's for example, now just even a question in PHP, maybe I'm a little bit confused. User record here, it's a global. We can use it with another page.
No, user record was created right here, line 35.
So we cannot access any of this.
No, but you can access. I saved
Yeah,
it. In the
I know.
session.
I know the session.
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
All the
Clear.
variables cease to exist once the script ends, except for session,
Okay.
right? Then in any other script, as long as you do session start, right, which enables the mechanism of sessions, right,
Okay.
then the content of session is restored.
Okay. Okay, clear.
Okay. All right, good.
Okay.
Mentioned that we don't do reload the page. For example, if I have a form and there is action, right? So when person presses submit, and one time you mentioned something like this with that we don't reload the same page.
Hold on. So first of all, this only applies to Ajax. So we only did it when we're doing register, right? We're doing here, we're doing Ajax. That's the only time we're not reloading the page. Every other time we are reloading the page. Second, please do not use action. Or was it, or target, or no, I think it was
Yes,
action.
action.
Please don't do that. I know some tutorials tell you to do this, but there is no point because we are using the same URL to show the form as to submit the form. So please do not use action.
Is it
Just,
too bad?
just skip it. Excuse me?
Is it too bad to use it or no?
No, please don't.
No. Okay.
Because the way we are structuring our software is that the script that generates the HTML page with the form is the same script as the one that receives it. In some tutorials, especially the older ones, they have one script that shows the form and another script that receives the data on submission. We do not do that these days anymore.
Okay.
Okay, that's why the action, we can just skip it. We should skip this. Okay, good question. Anything else, guys? Okay, so I'm a little worried about the index. All right, so index PHP. So let's see. First of all, I'm missing a few things here. I'm definitely missing the styles link, right? Which I should have. And then I'm missing. Well, I'm missing. The body should be centered. So that's just me. I know you guys probably already took care of it, right? I'm sure you did. Right. So I need to. Oops, not here. I need to put that in there. And then what? And then we also have, we have to take care of printing out the, well, the actual article. So I'm just going to copy the code. You will excuse me. I'll just do that. Okay. So I have a div here, main content. Welcome to my blog. And here's the query, right? Which is the same as we did. Actually, you know what? I'm just going to, I will delete the query and I'll just modify the one we had from article. So let's actually just borrow this one instead. Okay, so we have a SQL query, select all of the same thing, right? Except there's no limit on the ID, right? And you may also want to add order by, right? Why? Well, by default, what you want to do is you want to show the newest articles first, right? So if I don't do order by, that's not what's going to happen. Actually, let's take a look at this. So here is, let's just finish this. So I'm running the query. I check if there was a failure. That should be die. And then if there wasn't, then I run a loop, right? Here's the loop fetching all the articles, right? So it's pretty much the same as what you did in Java, right? When you said, give me the next, just give me the next, the next, the next, the next, right? When you were moving the cursor, you know, has next row, has next row, has next row. It's the same thing here. We are fetching from the result whole row, which is the article. And then we're going to continue doing it so as long as the article fetched is not null. Right, that's why the loop looks this way, right? And then I'll just generate another div, let's call it the article preview box, right? Close it over here. And then in here, I got a heading with link to the article, right? Because I need to be able to click on it. Look, I got ahref. It looks, again, not very pretty because of, I need the double quotes, right, inside of the string. So that's why it looks not exactly, I could actually, hold on, I could make it better. Hold on, I could make it, yeah, that would work. And there we go. Yeah, I could do it this way. Right, but it's still pretty terrible in the sense that once we plug in Twig, this will start looking nice. All right, we have to escape the title of the article because there may be some special characters there, you know, ampersands and whatnot. So we have to use HTML entities, right? and then that's it. And then we take the time from the database, we convert it to Unix time. Right, let's just do it in one line, that'd be better. Right, and then we format it into whatever format we want, right? And then we say posted by article username, right? Because in our case we have a username, right here on whatever was the posted date, right? All right, so here's another thing that is not obvious at all, guys. When we are showing the article, I don't actually want to show the whole thing, right? Because in the index, I don't want to show the entire page. I only want to show, we said the first, whatever, 100 or 200, whatever characters, right? And the problem with that is that imagine I have HTML where let's say I open bold at the beginning and I close it at the end. Where if I take half of this HTML, that means it will open the bold and never close it, right? Which will mess up the rest of my page. So what I want to do here, there's a couple of things here. One of the things is I fetch the body, sure I do, but then I strip all the tags. Now you already saw me using this one, but what I'm doing here, I'm not removing select tags, I'm removing all HTML tags from the body. No formatting, right? No bolds, italics, none of these things. I'm going to strip all the HTML tags from the body, and I'm also going to all limit it to the first 100 characters. 100 is arbitrary, but that's what I'm going to do. And then I'll check if the article itself was longer, right? Then I will add 3 dots at the end to signify that the articles was longer, right? And then I'll display the content, that the first 100 characters of the body here. Okay, let's see what this looks like. All right, so let's go to index. There we go. So this is index. Actually, I should remove that chunk. Yeah, no longer necessary. Let's do it again. So user Eva123 logged in. Welcome to my blog. First article, second you see. Creation TS. I got a problem there somewhere. It's created, because we named it a little differently. Created TS. There we go. Let's fix that. There we go. So posted by username on date, username date, right? And then what? Look at this. The first 100 characters are displayed, and then I see 3 dots, right? This one, the first 100 characters are displayed and no dots. Why? Because all of the article fits in the preview. Okay, if I click on a link, it takes me to view the article. See, it takes me to the correct URL, right? Same thing here. And then once I go there, you see this is now displayed with full formatting, right? I no longer strip all the tags because I'm viewing a specific article. That's okay. I will want to see, well, the contents of the article, right? Including all the formatting and whatnot. And I think that's pretty much it for that part. There's one more I want to add, which is showing who's logged in. Now we already have a chunk here. We're actually using the blog user, right? I have a piece here which is going to do pretty much the same thing, almost. Okay, so it's pretty much the same thing as checking if the user is logged in, right? If they are, then we fetch the username and we'll display it. If not logged in, then we display a link to login or register. And again, this should be, yeah. Let's simplify the quotes here. Yeah, that should do it. And let's do the same thing here. I'm just not a big fan of those backslashes if I can avoid it. Yeah, that should be it. Okay, so I'm checking if I'm logged in, I will display who am I logged in as with a link to logout or post an article, because I can only post an article if I'm logged in, right? Otherwise, if I'm not logged in, I will link to login and register PHP. Let's see how that behaves. So go back to the web browser, refresh, and there you have it, right? I can log out or post an article. There you go, post an article or log out. If I do log out, continue, you see now it says login or register. So I can log in, Jerry 123. There we go, login successful, and click to continue. There you go. So now I am logged in as Jerry. Okay, all right. Questions? Any questions on this? Any questions on this?